They said her shadow walked before her, and another lingered behind. In the quiet village of Izinku, where the Niger River bent like a giant serpent, no one spoke of the woman with two shadows without lowering their voice. To outsiders, she was called Adaeze the Widow, a tall, graceful woman who sold roasted fish at the market. But to those who truly observed, her life was wrapped in mystery. Children whispered, "Her shadow moves when she stands still." Hunters swore they had seen a second shadow slip into the forest when she walked by. But the strangest part was the humming, always humming, soft, sweet, chilling, like the river itself was singing through her lips. That night, the moon rose full and white over Izinko, casting silver blades of light across the forest. Most villagers slept soundly, but one man stayed awake, Obina the hunter. His eyes, sharp like an eagle's, caught movement no ordinary man noticed. His heart beat with the fire of curiosity, and his ears strained to catch even the faintest sound. And then he heard it. Somewhere near the river, a soft humming floated through the night, the same haunting song Adaeze always hummed. Obina gripped his spear. "What is she doing by the river at this hour?" he whispered to himself. He moved silently, his bare feet sinking into the wet earth, until he saw her. Adaeze stood at the river's edge, dressed in white that glowed like bone in the moonlight. Her head was tilted back, her eyes closed, and her lips parted as the humming rose and fell. But what made Obina's skin crawl was not her voice. It was the way two shadows stretched from her body. One clung to her feet, obedient to the moonlight. The other slithered into the river like a serpent, writhing as though it had a life of its own. Obina's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to run, but his legs refused. Suddenly, Adaeze stopped humming. Slowly, her head turned, her eyes opening, glowing faintly like embers in the dark. "Who follows me?" she asked, her voice calm yet heavy, as if layered with another unseen voice. Obina's heart pounded. He stepped back, but his heel snapped a twig. The crack echoed like thunder. Adaeze smiled. Not a warm smile, but the kind that hides secrets. "Obina the hunter," she said softly, "you see too much." Fear spread through his veins, but so did something else, curiosity. "Why do you have two shadows?" he demanded, though his voice trembled. Adaeze's smile faded. She looked at the river, then back at him. "Because I am not alone," she said. And with that, the second shadow rose from the water. It was taller, darker, more monstrous than hers, shaped like a woman, but with arms too long, fingers claw-like, and eyes like two burning coals. It moved, though Adaeze stood still. It leaned toward Obina, and though it made no sound, Obina felt its voice in his skull. Leave or be taken. The hunter stumbled back, clutching his spear. His body screamed for him to run, but his pride rooted him in place. What are you?" he gasped. Adaeze sighed, almost sadly. "Once I was like every woman, a wife, a mother. But grief makes strange companions, Obina. The river gives, and the river takes. My shadow is the price of survival." And then Just as suddenly as it had risen, the second shadow melted back into the water. Adesi lifted her basket, humming again as though nothing had happened, and walked away toward the village. Both shadows, one ordinary, one monstrous, slid along behind her. Obina remained frozen by the riverbank, sweat dripping down his brow. He wanted to shout, to warn the others, but his tongue felt heavy. He looked into the river and swore he saw faces, pale, drowned faces staring up at him before vanishing beneath the ripples. The hunter stumbled home, his chest heaving, his mind screaming. He knew one thing: Izinku was no longer safe. But how do you fight a woman whose secret lives in her very shadow? At dawn, the market buzzed as usual. Adaeze roasted her fish, her hands moving swiftly, her humming floating through the air. People crowded her stall, unable to resist the taste of her food. The smoke curled upward, rich with the smell of pepper and oil. No one suspected, no one but Obina. He stood at a distance, staring. His mind replayed the sight of the second shadow, the burning eyes, the whispered threat. But every villager who bit into her fish moaned in delight, praising her skill. "Ah, Adaeze, your fish tastes better than anyone's," cried one woman. Another licked her fingers. "You must cook with magic," she laughed, not knowing how close she was to the truth. Obina clenched his fists. He wanted to shout, "Her shadow is not her own," but who would believe him? And so the hunter kept his silence. But silence, my friends, is dangerous. It is the seed from which bigger shadows grow. For though Obina tried to bury what he had seen, the river was not done with Adaeze. And soon the whole village would know the price of her secret. The sun rose golden over Izinku, spilling light across the red earth and waking the chorus of birds. Drums from a nearby shrine throbbed faintly, announcing a festival soon to come. Yet, in the heart of the village, whispers were already growing louder than drums. It began with small things: chickens vanishing in the night, nets cast into the river returning empty as though the water itself had swallowed every fish. Old men grumbled, women muttered, and children claimed they heard footsteps even when no one walked near. The villagers needed someone to blame. And so their eyes began to fall on Adesi. By day, she smiled. Her stall in the market overflowed with roasted fish, always fresh, always plenty, even when other fishermen caught nothing. She hummed that same haunting tune as she flipped her fish over the fire, smoke curling like dark fingers. Customers praised her, but behind their praise lurked suspicion. "Have you noticed?" one woman whispered to her neighbor. "No matter how bad the river gets, Adese's stall is never empty." Her neighbor leaned close. "Ay, and when she hums, I feel my skin crawl. Yet I cannot resist her food. Could it be," she lowered her voice, "witchcraft?" The neighbor slapped her arm quickly. "Hush before she hears you. Shadows have ears." They both laughed nervously, but their eyes lingered on Adesi. Meanwhile, Obina the hunter wrestled with sleepless nights. His dreams were filled with a second shadow, those burning eyes, that voiceless warning echoing in his skull. He woke each morning drenched in sweat, his spear clutched in his hand as if ready to fight ghosts.
At last he confided in his friend, Ikenna, a young farmer known for his honesty. "I swear it," Obina whispered one evening as they sat under the great Iroko tree. "Her shadow is alive. I saw it rise from the river like a spirit. Ikenna, something evil walks with her." Ikenna frowned, his hands stained with soil from the day's labor. "Obina, you are a brave hunter, but even brave men sometimes imagine things. Shadows cannot live apart from their owners." Obina shook his head violently. "You think I lie? You think the river lies? Ikenna, mark my words, a daisy is not what she seems." But before Ikenna could reply, a group of children ran past singing a teasing song. Two shadows, dancing in the night. One for the woman, one for her fright." The men froze. Obina's face turned pale. If children were already singing about it, then surely others had noticed. That night another strange thing happened. The chief's youngest daughter, little Amara, went missing. Her mother swore she tucked her into bed, but at dawn, the mat was empty. The village erupted in panic. Men grabbed torches, women wailed, the chief roared in anger. And as always, whispers found their way back to a daisy. "Was she not at the river last night, humming again?" someone asked. "I saw smoke from her hut after midnight," another added. Could she have taken the child? Though no one dared accuse her openly, the suspicion thickened like harmattan dust. Obina clenched his fists. He wanted to shout the truth he had seen at the river. Yet something stopped him. Fear. The memory of that second shadow's warning. Leave or be taken. Still, he could not hold his silence forever. The next day, Obina gathered his courage and visited Elder Nanodozi, the oldest man in Ezenku, known for wisdom that stretched back generations. The elder sat before his hut, chewing kola nut, his eyes clouded with age but sharp with insight. "Elder," Obina said, bowing respectfully, "I seek your counsel. I have seen something unnatural." The old man tilted his head. "Unnatural things walk this land as freely as goats, my son. Tell me what troubles your heart." Obina told him everything. Ada Deezy's humming, the second shadow, the eyes in the river. Elder Nanodozi listened silently, his expression unreadable. When Obina finished, the elders spat the kola nutshell aside and whispered, "You have seen the mark of the Miri Nwaini, the woman of the water. Such beings walk between worlds. They come when grief is deep and bargains are struck. A second shadow means she carries the spirit of the river with her. It feeds her, but it also hungers. And when it hungers too long, it will take." Obina's skin prickled. "Then Amara." The elder shook his head. "I cannot say, but beware, hunter. If you speak without proof, the village may turn against you instead. The shadow chooses its own prey." Obina bowed again, his heart heavier than before. That evening, the village gathered in the square. Torches flickered, drums pounded low, the air thick with fear. The chief's voice thundered across the crowd. "My daughter is missing. Whoever has taken her, return her now or face the wrath of this village." All heads turned. Some looked at the forest, some at the river, but more and more eyes drifted toward Adaise, who stood calmly at the edge of the crowd, her white wrapper glowing in the firelight. She hummed softly, almost defiantly, as if the tension around her did not exist. And beside her feet, two shadows swayed. Gasps rippled through the people. One man shouted, "Look! Look at her feet! The shadows!" Another screamed, "Witch! River witch!" Chaos erupted. Villagers surged forward, some grabbing stones, others clutching charms. But before they could reach her, thunder cracked across the sky, so sudden and violent that the ground trembled. The torches flickered, the drums fell silent, and Adaise laughed. Not a human laugh, but a sound like water gurgling over stones, layered with 100 whispers. She raised her hands, and for a heartbeat, her second shadow rose taller, darker, spreading its arms over the crowd like a giant spirit ready to strike. The villagers froze in terror. Even the chief stumbled backward. Adaise's eyes swept across them, glowing faintly. "If you value your lives," she said, her voice heavy with power, "leave me in peace. I am not your enemy unless you make me so." Then, just as suddenly, the second shadow sank back into the earth. Adaise turned and walked away, humming as though nothing had happened. The crowd parted before her like frightened birds before a hawk. When she was gone, silence gripped the square. No one dared speak, but in their hearts, one truth had settled. Ezenku could no longer ignore the woman with two shadows, and Obinna knew deep in his bones that the real battle had only just begun. When fear and silence meet, suspicion grows into fire, and fire burns both guilty and innocent. If your whole village suspected someone of dark powers, but you had seen proof with your own eyes, would you expose them or stay silent to protect yourself? What would you do? Night fell heavy on Ezenku. Clouds choked the moon, and the forest whispered secrets to those brave enough to listen. Obinna was not at ease. He sat before his hut, sharpening his spear, though he knew spears were useless against shadows. His heart hammered with questions that gnawed like termites. Why did Adaise bargain with the river? What price had she paid? And where was little Amara? His thoughts were broken when Ikenna rushed in, eyes wild. "Obinna, I saw her, at the river again. She was not alone." Obinna sprang to his feet. Together they ran through the night, guided by the hum that floated through the trees. The same haunting song, soft yet piercing, like a blade wrapped in silk. They reached the riverbank and hid behind a fallen palm. What they saw froze their blood. Adaise knelt by the water, arms lifted high. Beside her, the second shadow stretched enormous, its limbs tangled in mist. And in her hands, Obinna gasped. It was Amara, the missing child, asleep or entranced, her tiny chest rising and falling. Adaise's voice was no longer human. It rose and fell like waves, speaking words older than the village itself. "Spirits of the deep, accept this gift. Binds me tighter, feed me longer." The river bubbled. A figure emerged, a woman made entirely of water,
her face beautiful yet terrifying, eyes as deep as whirlpools. Her hair flowed like currents, her body shimmering with scales, the emitting Wangi, the water woman. She reached for Amara, but Obina's fury erupted. He leapt from hiding, spear raised. "Stop!" he roared. Adeyeze whirled, eyes blazing. "Fool! You will ruin everything!" But Obinna charged. He thrust his spear at the watery figure, only for it to pass through like smoke. The river spirit laughed, a sound that rattled bones. "You dare challenge me, mortal?" the spirit thundered. "The bargain was sealed the day Adeyeze wept into my waters. She gave her grief, and I gave her plenty. But plenty demands payment." Obina's spear trembled in his hands. "Why the child?" "Because the river hungers," the spirit replied. "Without offerings, Adeze's blessing turns to curse. Every fish she roasts, every coin she earns, paid with blood." Adeyeze screams, clutching Amara tighter. "Not her! Not yet! I will find another way." But the spirit's eyes narrowed. "You dare resist me, shadow bearer?" The second shadow rose higher, its claws reaching for Adeyeze herself. She staggered back, torn between fear and defiance. Obinna seized the moment. He snatched Amara from Adeyeze's arms and ran, hearts pounding. Behind him, Adeyeze wailed, a sound half human, half river. The spirit's laughter followed him, echoing through the trees. By dawn, Amara was safe in her father's arms. The village rejoiced, praising Obinna as a hero. But Adeyeze was gone. She had vanished before the first rooster crowed, leaving only the echo of her humming in the trees. The chief summoned the elders. "This woman has brought darkness into our midst. She must be found and judged." But Elder and Nadosi shook his head gravely. "Judge not too quickly. Adeyeze is trapped in a bargain. To destroy her without breaking it is to invite the river's wrath upon us all." The chief scowled. "Then what must be done?" The elder's eyes gleamed. "There is but one way: to sever her shadow from her. The spirit must be confronted, and the bond broken." The villagers murmured in fear. Confront the river spirit? That was no small task. But Obinna, fire in his chest, rose to his feet. "I will do it," he said. "For too long, shadows have ruled our nights. Let the sun return to Etsenku." And so preparations began. That night, Obinna sought strength in solitude. He sat by his fire, listening to the crackle of wood, when suddenly a figure stepped into the light. It was Adeyeze. Her face was pale, her wrapper torn, her eyes haunted. Two shadows clung to her still, restless as snakes. "Hunter, you saved the child. For that I should thank you. But you do not understand. I did not choose this lightly." Obinna gripped his spear. "Then tell me, why? Why make such a bargain?" Adeyeze's voice cracked. "My husband died in the war. My only son drowned in this same river. I was left with nothing but grief. I cried out to the water, begged for help. The spirit answered. She gave me fish to sell, wealth to survive. But I was blind to the cost. Now
I cannot be free." Tears glittered in her eyes. "Do you think I enjoy this curse? Do you think I want two shadows? Every night I hear my son's voice in the river, calling me. Every night the spirit reminds me, nothing is given without taking." Obina's anger faltered. He saw not a witch, but a woman chained by sorrow. "There is a way," he said softly. "The elders say the bond can be broken." Adaese's eyes widened. Hope flickered, quickly crushed by fear. "You don't understand. To break it means war with the river. The spirit will not release me easily. Blood will flow." "Then let it flow," Obina growled. "Better one battle than endless sacrifice." Adaese trembled. For a moment, the second shadow loomed taller, as if warning her. But she nodded. "If you mean to fight, then I will stand with you. For once, let me fight my own chains." And with that, the hunter and the widow forged a fragile alliance, one bound not by trust, but by desperation. The river spirit would not surrender, but neither would they. The night chosen for the battle was no ordinary night. The moon hung red, swollen like a wound in the sky. The villagers gathered in trembling silence by the riverbank. Drums beat low, steady as a heartbeat, while elders drew protective chalk marks on the ground. Obina stood at the front, spear in hand. Beside him, Adaese wore a white wrapper, her hair loose, her face grim. Two shadows still followed her, restless, but tonight she did not flinch from them. She stood tall, as if daring them to defy her. Elder Inadosi raised his staff. "Spirits of water, spirits of earth, hear us. Tonight we break chains. Tonight we reclaim what belongs to the living." The river stirred. Ripples spread though no wind blew. A cold mist rose, carrying the scent of salt and decay. And from its depths, the Mri Inwangi emerged, taller and fiercer than before. Her eyes burned like whirlpools. "So," the spirit hissed, "you bring your sticks and chants against me. Fools, I am the river. I am endless." The villagers shrank back, but Obina stepped forward. "No more sacrifices, no more shadows. Release Adaese or face us all." The spirit laughed, a sound that shook the trees. "Ha ha ha! Release her! She is mine. She fed me her grief. She birthed me her shadow. Without me, she is nothing." Adaese raised her chin. "Without you, I am free." At once, the second shadow surged upward, growing monstrous. It lunged at Adaese, claws slashing. Obina blocked with his spear, sparks flying as iron met darkness. The villagers screamed, scattering. Thunder cracked, rain poured, soaking the earth. The river rose higher, waves crashing onto the bank. The spirit's voice roared above the storm. "You dare defy me, then drown!" But Adaese lifted her hands and began to sing, not her usual haunting hum, but a new song, strong and defiant. Her voice wove through the storm like fire through dry grass. Obina felt strength surge through him. He thrust his spear again, this time piercing the shadow's chest. It shrieked, dissolving into smoke, but the spirit only laughed, forming another shadow and another. "We cannot win," Adaese cried. "Her power is endless." Elder Inadosi's voice cut through the chaos. "Not endless. Spirits feed on what we give them. Starve her of fear, she will weaken. Obina roared to the villagers, "Stand! Do not run! Face her!" One by one, the people stopped fleeing. They turned, raising torches, chanting prayers. Their voices rose like a wave, crashing against the spirit's power. The shadows faltered. Adiese's song grew louder, tears streaming down her face. "I take back my grief. I take back my shadow. You cannot have me." The spirit screamed, waves thrashing violently. "You dare break the bargain? Then drown with me!" With one final surge, she rose like a tower of water, crashing toward them. But Obina hurled his spear with all his strength. It pierced the heart of the watery figure. At the same moment, Adiese's voice hit a piercing note that split the night. The spirit shrieked, twisting, writhing. The second shadow tore from Adiese's body, screaming as it dissolved into mist. The river boiled, then fell silent. When the storm cleared, the spirit was gone. Adiese collapsed, her body trembling. Only one shadow lay at her feet. The villagers gasped. Then slowly, they began to cheer. The chain was broken.
Morning broke over Ezenku, bright and golden, as if the storm had never been. The village gathered in the square, buzzing with relief. Children sang, women danced, men pounded drums. For the first time in years, laughter rang without fear. Adese stood before them, humbled. She looked smaller now, not the mysterious widow with endless fish, but simply a woman, tired, scarred, free. Her eyes were red from tears, but her face was lifted to the sun. The chief raised his staff. "The curse is broken. The river has been silenced. And for this, we honor Obina and Adaeze." The crowd roared, but Adaeze lifted her hand, silencing them. "I am free, yes, but let my freedom be a lesson. I bargained with grief, and grief gave me chains. I fed shadows with silence, and they grew fat on my soul. Do not be as I was. When sorrow comes, share it. Do not hide it in rivers or shadows." Her words struck deep. Mothers wept, fathers bowed, children stared wide-eyed. Elder Nadozi added, "Our ancestors teach us, the one who carries grief alone carries fire in a calabash. It will burn them from within." Adaeze's tale must never be forgotten. The villagers agreed. They named the Night of Thunder a sacred memory to remind generations that bargains with darkness never end well. Obina, standing quietly, felt Adaeze's eyes on him. Gratitude shone there, but also sorrow, for freedom did not return her husband nor her drowned son. Shadows may fade, but scars remain. Later, by the riverbank, Adaeze stood alone. She gazed at the water, calm now, reflecting the sky. Only one shadow stretched behind her. She touched the earth gently. "My son," she whispered, "I release you. Rest where I could not let you go." The wind stirred, carrying her words across the ripples. For the first time in years, she did not hum. She was silent, and in that silence, peace. Obina joined her quietly. "Do you regret it?" he asked. Adaeze shook her head. "Regret cannot change the past, but truth can guard the future. Let the village remember, not all gifts come from the light. Some shine from the dark, and those are the ones that cost most dearly." Obina nodded. Together they watched the river flow, endless, eternal, yet no longer master of their shadows. Grief is heavy, but bargaining with darkness makes it heavier. When shadows whisper promises, remember, what they give, they always take back, with interest. True freedom comes not from secret deals, but from courage, unity, and truth. Final question for you. If life offered you everything you ever wanted, but at the cost of a secret you could never escape, would you take the bargain or walk away empty-handed? What would you do?